Hello, Assalamualaikum.
Hello, how are you?
Hi Nadia, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry, I was just having my previous class, so that's why I wanted to end it and then call you in. So, welcome to the classes. Are you just gonna keep your mic on, like you're not gonna turn your video on?
Yes, if that's all right.
Yeah, so all of the students, like we just like it helps interaction better, but you can see if you're comfortable. All right, so so how's it going? Did you like you were reading doing psychology on your own. So did you read up? Tell me, what's your overall understanding now?
Started like you said from the beginning. I stopped like
Yeah.
doing the researches and went for the experiments and the stuff so I can understand the researches better.
Yeah. So did it help? Did you do the experiments and dependent variables and everything?
Yes,
Okay. So let's try to keep this interactive and you can share whatever you have learned and like that, okay? Let me share the slides and the book. Just give me a minute. Okay, so because you're gonna be mainly doing researches in psychology, so it's important that we start from the research methods. Can you see my screen?
yes, I can.
Yeah. So the first thing that we have to understand about research method is that the psychology is basically, like dependent on it. And without proper research, we can't have anything that we have in psychology. So we need to understand the method. Uh, it uses the scientific method where we like first we have to understand what we are trying to find, and then we need to come up with the variables that we have in there, like how we will measure those things, and then we need to see whether like our the procedure that we did is whether it was all right or not. So we have different things to worry about when we're doing the psychology experiment. So the first thing that you might have come across is the experiment. So can you tell me, like, what an experiment do you think is? Why do we do an experiment? What's your general idea and understanding?
An experiment is like an investigation done by researchers
Hmm.
on like a specific topic to
Yeah.
find like the results or the changes we want according to like the independent variable,
Mm-hmm.
and then we measure like which is the dependent variable. We measure the things
Mm-hmm.
that are changing, and then
Yeah.
we come up with the conclusion we from the results that we find from the investigation.
Yes, very good. So, the experiment is basically like, as you said, that we have two variables in there and we are trying to see how change in one variable can bring a change in the other one. So this is so first we have to also understand that experiment is the only one that gives us this um a very clear and concise understanding of what will happen if we like if how two variables would affect each other, or how one can bring a change in the other one. So if you want to see one variable bringing a change in the other one, we probably have to create a very controlled and restricted environment. We can't have any other variable changing, we can't have any other situation changing them, or we just have to see how, one IV impacts the DV. Okay. So we need to have an environment that's very controlled and that has very little error on like we can't have any person changing that, we can't have any other situation happening at that time. Now, first we have to understand variables as well. You have a clear understanding of variables, but can you tell me, like, for example, uh, over here, of what is an IV and a DV? So, in general terms, IV is the one that we are changing, and DV is the one that gets changed as a part of the study. So, if I show you this example, the next one, can you tell me what is the IV and what's the DV? I hope the screen is still being shared. Okay, yeah. In this one, in the first study, can you tell me what's the IV and what's the DV? Children who view a film promoting helping behavior show more altruistic behavior than children who view a neutral film.
The independent is the different like film promoting or neutral filming,
Yeah.
and then the independent that we measure is the altruistic behavior.
Hmm. Sorry, can you repeat again?
The independent variable
Mm-hmm.
is like the film promoting or the neutral film,
Yes.
and then the dependent is the altruistic behavior
Very good.
that we measure.
Yes. Yes, very good. So IV is the film and the DV is altruistic behavior. And what about the second study? What about that one?
In independent, it's the nutrition, and then the
Mm-hmm.
dependent is their reading ability.
Yes. Very good. So, for example, this is this research that we are doing. So we need to make sure that if they're like, if we're doing the first one, the children whom we are film promoting helping behavior show more altruistic behavior. Now, we only want to make sure, and that's what we're going to have a lot of conversation about, and that is one main thing that you will always be, concerned of, is that are there any other variables or any different other considerations we need to have to make sure that our IV is the only one that's affecting the DV? So if we have children who view the film and they show altruistic behavior, we need to make sure that it's just the altruistic, that is just the film that is promoting their altruistic behavior, like helping behavior, and the children are not helping by nature, or children are not helping by some other reason. Like sometimes children offer help just to get some sort of praise, or children are helping because by nature they have seen helping behaviors to be like very graciously reinforced or accepted by other people. So we need to make sure that children are only influenced by the film and not by anything else. So that is what we are going to talk about when we go to extraneous variables. Now let's consider another example. Like let's do the study where where we want to find out if coffee has any effect on the achievement measured by marks in our exam. Like does having more coffee can make you get more marks in your exam? So let's say that we took 9 students and we gave them a paper of mathematics and we divided them into 3 different groups. So we have a group A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, H, I. So we have 9 students divided over 3 groups. Now, in one situation, let me use this. Now let's if you look over here, so we have the students A, B, C having a 0 cup of coffee, and then D, E, F having 2 cups of coffee, and G, H, I having 4 cups of coffee. Can you tell me why is would it be important to have a condition with 0 cups of coffee?
The 0 cups of coffee is like the controlled variable, so we can know how it's different when we don't have any cup of coffee with having a cup of coffee.
Yes, very good. So it's so just a little tiny correction that it's a control condition, and that can be confusing because sometimes your questions are about controlled variables, and then there are different questions about a control condition. So here, it's a control condition, and in the control condition, the independent variable is absent. So IV is over here is the coffee, and when that is absent, that is what makes this condition the control condition. So the first one is a control condition, and the second one, there's 2 cups and 4 cups. Both of these are the experimental conditions. So these two are the experimental condition, and this one is the control condition. So now we have 3 conditions over here, and that's how we usually, try to compare different conditions of the independent variable, just to make sure that, we are not biased and we are comparing all possible different situations as they occur in the environment. Now, now, if we do the study, let's say we did this, and the results we got are that when students had 0 cups of coffee, they got 80 marks. When they had 2 cups of coffee, they got 70 marks. And when they had 4 cups of coffee, they got 95 marks. So, do you think coffee has any effect on the marks that we're getting?
Yes, they do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so, because like 2 cups have 70, but 4 cups have 95, so there might be some effect. Can you think of other conditions that also have a role in, like in your exam and the marks you get?
The amount of sleep you get before the exam, or the amount of time you studied for that subject,
Yes.
or how you studied.
Yes. So all of these, like if we want to make sure that coffee has an effect on our exam scores, we want to make sure that all the things that you said and possibly these ones as well, like were the last bullet point, like studying more, revising, our interest of that subject, the management of time, our attendance in the classes of that subject, the also we need to see if the person cheated in that exam or if the exam was way too easy. These are all the different other factors that can have a role in the marks that you get in your exam. So it's not just the coffee, and if we want to make sure that it was just the coffee that increased our marks, we need to control all of these variables in order to do the research. How do you think we can control all these variables? Do you think there is any what do you think is the possible way to control these?
Making sure that each student like revised the same amount of time or slept the same amount of time.
Hmm. And what about cheating? How can we control that?
Being able to monitor like the students during the exam well, putting like maybe 3 teachers or two, depending on like the amount of students there is.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's good idea. So the more we do, like the more controlled condition and standardized condition that we have, like if everything is done in the same way, the same paper is given, the same amount of syllabus or the same number of classes are given to the students, the more it's similar for everyone, the more the chances are, because of the more the chances are that our study is reliable, valid, and everything. So extraneous variables, they can be controlled by keeping everything same and doing the study in a very standardized manner. Standardization means like where you keep everything, where you do everything in the same way. Like for every student, everything, every situation, every aspect of the experimental situation is kept the same. So let's move forward. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. Now I want you to find out any flaw in this experiment. The first one and the second one. Okay, take your time to read and then tell.
And the first one, it's like the gender, because like
Mhm.
girls and boys have different aggressiveness. Like boys could have more, or girls could have more, so that's not controlled.
Okay, so the gender difference is one. Okay, good. And next one.
That they like use the most stressful amount of day. They didn't like do it on like multiple days. They did it on just one day, which could differ from other days.
Very good. So in the second one, they didn't do it on like multiple days. They just did it on one day. That is the math test day. And because of that, students had high anxiety levels. Okay, so that is again an extraneous variable, and that is going to affect the way that our findings come out. Now, in the first one, you were rightly picking up one aspect, that's the gender difference. However, there's another one. If you see, like in this sample of 18 participants, almost 10 were identified as having high aggression level, such as being physically very aggressive with younger children and being very verbally abusive as well. So these children, like they're not like our intent is to see if by playing a violent video game, can someone get aggressive? But these children are aggressive even without the violent video games. So this is an extraneous variable that by nature they are so aggressive, and that's why it is difficult for us to do the study. Like it is difficult for us to see how the how if we can separate the effect of the violent video games from their previous already the level of aggression that they have. So this is the flaw. Okay, now what do you think we can do about it? Like if we have kids who are already very aggressive, how can we control that?
Could you like repeat that? I don't really know how.
Yeah. So I'm saying that in the did you understand the second flaw in the first bullet point, the first
Yes, I
example?
did.
So let's say if that is the flaw, that the students in your study are very aggressive by their personality, by their nature, then what can we do about it? Like how can we resolve that one?
We make sure like the children who are being investigated aren't aggressive or don't have a history of being aggressive to other people.
Yeah, we can. All right, yes, we can do that. And okay, yeah. And then we will come across this, which is a mashed pair design in an experiment. Like if we have someone who is very highly aggressive, then in the second group, we also have someone who is also highly aggressive. Like we can have the similar kind of sample. And this, like if we check their aggression levels beforehand, then we can have people with the same level of aggression. Instead of someone being too high and someone being too low, we can have same level of aggression, and then, we can do our study. All right. So this is another way to tackle it, but we will do it uh, in with time. Okay. So we talked about extraneous variables here, and now let's. Do you understand this concept of extraneous variables?
Yes,
Hmm?
I do.
Okay. Have you read this part from the book as well? Just want to make sure there's nothing that's confusing.
Yes, I did. It's very understandable.
All right. Just give me a minute. Uh, uh, okay. Now we move on to the designs of the experiment, and it's not sharing now, I guess. Let me share again. Okay. So we talked about different conditions of the experiment, like we do it because we wanna make sure like we compare them if on different times on different days, and not just do it once in a situation, so that our experiment doesn't overestimate or underestimate something. Like if we just measure it on one day when they have the math test, then maybe we'll get a very exaggerated account of anxiety. So it's better to measure whatever we are measuring on different times and dates, so that we can understand their actual levels of anxiety or whatever we are measuring. Now, let's say that, and this is also a way to control for the extraneous variable. So previously, we talked about the time, the day, like Monday was a math test day, so anxiety level was higher. But let's say in the same school, the time of the day also has a role. So, for example, students, whenever they have a class in the morning, let's say then they have the math class in the morning, their anxiety levels are different. And sometimes it also happens that once you have classes after a break or a recess, anxiety levels are different because you have just eaten, you have just, you know, like, you have just went out with your friends, so anxiety levels get different. And then sometimes the subject can also create a change. So maybe some students have anxiety in the math class but not in the science class. So science class in the morning can also cause different level of anxiety, and science class after 12 can have a different level of anxiety. So now we are doing this study again with four different conditions. Can you come up with a control condition for this experiment? Like you have the four experimental conditions, what can be one of the control conditions? Keeping in mind that the control is the one where the independent variable is absent.
We can control like the time of when the we're measuring the anxiety levels.
Uh, the time. But we have the time now. What about, like, how can we create a control condition? What do you think is the IV here?
The IV is like the it could be here the time of day or the yeah the time of day is when it is.
The time and class as well, math and science.
Yes,
Okay, so we have two IVs here. One is the subject and the other is the time. Now, to create a control condition, remove both of these. What situation will you have if you exclude the subject and take away the time as well?
like the amount of sleep the student had because that could affect the anxiety levels.
Yeah, but that's the extraneous one. Just I want you to remove the independent variable here and then create a condition. So like we have a
I don't
math
understand
class.
how.
Okay, so we have a math class in the morning. We have a math class after 12. We have a science class in the morning and the science class after 12. Now, we want to see what would happen if there is no math class and if there is no science class. Then what kind of day would we have?
Like an English class, for example.
Okay, so maybe a class with some other subject, or maybe a day with when the students don't have a class. Like a day when they have no class, because if they have some sort of function going on, maybe that would create like an extraneous variable. So the control condition over here can be uh let me maybe I have mentioned, yeah. So control condition can be the no class throughout the day when they don't have any class. Like it's not about in the morning or in the afternoon, they have no class. So that would be when we can compare what would happen if there is no class. The students, like sometimes the students have anxiety just because they're coming to school. So in order to rule out that, we can have a situation when they have no class throughout the day. Okay. So this is how we can create this experiment. Now we have a sample. Now in order to do that, let's assign a sample of 100 students. Some are having math class in the morning, some are having a math class after 12. We divide all our 100 students into five different groups of 20 students each, and we get the result as follows: that the highest anxiety score is 10. The math class in the morning is having the anxiety level of 8 out of 10. The math class after 12 is having anxiety level of 2 out of 10. The other group is having 6 out of 10. The science class after 12 is having 3 out of 10. But surprisingly, those having no class throughout the day are getting 10 out of 10. Now, what do you think about this? What do you think is the conclusion from this study? That's quite shocking. Like students having no class throughout the day they're being the most anxious. What can we say about these students?
Like when students like have nothing to do, they tend to be more anxious because they don't like have a specific thing to think about. Like for example, math class, you're thinking about what you're doing. When you don't
Yeah.
have a class, you don't know what there's nothing to do. So
Yes.
you have to think about many things.
Yes. So their anxiety level is higher when they're not engaged, when they're not involved. So if we were to go with this, so that's why, this study will give you a lot of ideas about how we probably structure psychology situations, because many times when we don't give importance to these like other possibilities, we end up missing out a lot of things. The popular understanding is that math classes are the most anxious, or the science class or the class when students have test is the one that gives them the most anxiety. But it is also possible when students have nothing to do, when their mind are left to wander, that's when they get the most anxious. So having a control group is really important in these kind of situations. Is it making sense so far?
Yes.
Okay. So I hope you're clear with this. The experimental condition is the one where we have a level of IV and DV. Control is the one where the IV is absent. And a control variable are those that you control, like the extraneous ones. But a condition is the one in which you assign students to that condition, but they don't have to go through the IV. That's the control condition. Clear?
Yes, clear.
Now we come across different types of experimental designs, and we have three different types of designs. Did you go through any of these as well or not?
Yes, I went through them, but what am I supposed to know exactly about them?
Yeah, okay. So when we do an experiment, we come across like when we do an experiment, there are different ways to do it. Like it can be when it can be a one where we are comparing different people. It can be the one where we are you know comparing people with each other. Either we are comparing people with themselves, or we are comparing people in let's say in situations where there's some sort of matching and they're very similar with each other. So the comparison needs to come up in we can do it in different ways. The first way to do a comparison between people is the independent measure design. And let me go here. So this is the picture that will give you an idea of how does that way work. Whichever way you do it, there are going to be some strengths and some weaknesses in that. So be ready for that. But when you are doing a research, when you are doing a study later on, like the studies you will do, you will identify the type of the group, and you will identify the strengths and weaknesses of that study based on the way that they have done that comparison. So that's why it's important for you to understand it. So the first one is the independent group, as the name suggests. Like here we have the comparison is between two different participants, like two different groups of participants. So there is a participant one in the condition A and a participant two in the condition B, and we are comparing one participant with the other one. Okay, so now did you get it?
Yes, so basically in the independent, each participant has a different IV.
Each part is a different IV. Like the conditions will be different. Like the IV will be the same. Like the math class and like the math class in the morning and the science class in the morning. It's this class. The IV is the same. The subject is different, but the people are different. Like let me go back to that. Like this one, since we just did this example, this is one condition of the IV, and this is the second condition of the IV. Condition of the IV will be different. The IV is the same, like for the whole experiment. You get
Okay,
it?
yes, I get that. Yeah.
Okay. So now let's understand it by this example. This is the same one that we were doing. Or maybe we can use a different. Yeah, let's do it by that. Okay. So, now we did this study just now that we have a sample of, let's say if we have a sample of, let's say 100 students, we are going to have different people in all of the conditions. So in the math class in the morning, we have 20 people. In the math class after 12, we have different 20 people. In the science class condition, we have 20 people. In the science class after 12, we have 20 different people. And in the control group, we have different people. Just focus on having different people, different participants in each group. That is an independent measure design. It is comparing two different sets of groups with each other. Depending upon your condition, in this experiment, we have five groups of people and we are comparing them in different conditions. Let's say there's another experiment where we have six participants: Aisha, Khadija, Zara, Bushra, Amna, Ikra. So we have six participants and we want to make, and we have three conditions of that. So this is a study of the coffee that we were doing, like can coffee can increase marks. So let's say we have uh, a condition where we are giving 2 cups of coffee and another condition where we are giving 3 cups of coffee and another condition where we are giving 0 cups of coffee. So we have three different conditions. One is having 2 cups of coffee, 3 cups of coffee, or 0 cups of coffee. But we have divided separate participants in all of the conditions. So in the first one, the participant is Zara and Aisha. In the second one, the participant is Bushra and Amna. And in the 0 cups, we have Khadija and Ikra. So they're not the same. Okay, we take different participant, and every participant, like the way you write it is that every participant go through that condition only once, like they are just exposed to it one time and not more than one time. Now design, because it makes the participant, like it takes different participant, makes them go through it only once. So on the basis of that, it has its strengths and weaknesses. Let's go to that point. Okay. First thing is the concept of demand characteristics. First, we have to understand what they are, and then we will see how they are affecting it. Are you getting it? Is there any point which is not clear?
No, until now it's all like that.
Okay. So the first thing is the demand characteristics, and demand characteristics mean like those features of the experiment that give away the aims. So if a person, let's say if you were invited to be in an experiment and you were invited to a lab to be a part of a study, and you were given a puzzle to solve, and you were given this puzzle to solve after having 1 cup of coffee. So you solve the puzzle. And then after a while, you're given 2 cups of coffee and given a puzzle to solve. And then in the same day, you get then 3 cups of coffee and then the same puzzle to solve. What do you think they're doing to you?
They're saying how the different cups affect like my behavior.
Yeah. So you have figured out the aim of the study. Okay. You have figured out what they're trying to do and what they are actually like, and trying to understand like how coffee can help you solve the puzzles. So maybe if you are, if you wanna change the results of the experiment, maybe you can just uh, start to behave differently. Maybe you will show the change of behaviors. So what were I want to say? Yeah, your the way you approach the experiment is going to be very different now because you have figured out the aim. So demand characteristics are those that give away the aim. Do you think the independent group design will have that problem?
No, because each participant goes only through like one IV condition, so they wouldn't
Yes.
know what the other conditions are.
Very good. So because they go through it only once, they are not going to have this problem. So not having demand characteristics is a strength of the independent measures design, because They only go through the study once, so the participants can't figure out what the study is about and what's going to happen. They only go through it once. So this is a strength of this design. The second important understanding like we need to have is the random allocation. Random in psychology means that whatever we are doing, like randomly, if we want to pick a dress randomly from our cupboard, we just, pick something that is closer to us or that we see at the first sight. Normally, we think random as like that. But random in psychology means that every participant has the equal opportunity to be allocated to one condition of the experiment. So now in our study of the coffee, in this study we had three conditions and we had these six participants. Now, the way we are going to allocate them to all of these conditions is not by like, oh, Aisha doesn't like coffee, so just, put her in the 2 cup of coffee condition. No, we're going to have a random allocation way. And a random allocation method involves like where we have no bias, we have no favoritism, we have no concern what Aisha likes, and we just put her into any of the conditions. Like Aisha can end up in the 3 cup, in the 0 cup, or in the 2 cup because the way that we allocate her in the group. So maybe we can just like fold, like we can have a chit and we can put the names on it, fold them, and then pick one randomly, and then put it in the 2 cup of coffee condition. In this way, everyone has the equal chance of being selected and being placed in any of the conditions. So that's how we randomly decide. Okay, we don't decide it by convenience. We don't ask the participants where they want to go, which condition they would like to be in, because later on you will see that this design is used for experimenting drugs, different kind of therapies, different kind of other procedures. So if we have any sort of bias in it, it can lead to a lot of problems. So we cannot have any biasness in the way we allocate the participants. Like for example, if you're designing a new drug and you want to test between a placebo is in like the drug that is not actually a drug, a placebo, and an actual drug. So all the participants would like to end up in the drug condition. They wouldn't want to have a placebo condition. They would like to, be included in the one where they get the actual medication. So the participants are not told which condition they will be in, and they just end up in any condition randomly. Everyone has an equal chance of ending up in one of the conditions. Okay, so that's how we do this random allocation. Okay. Mm, do you get it? Is it understandable?
Yes.
Another thing that we're going to talk about here is the individual differences. Individual differences means that because we are uh, selecting the participants in different groups, like we have different participants in all of the groups, so they are going to like everyone is going to be very different from one another, right? They are like, for even if we have siblings, even if we have twins, they're going to be so much different from one another. So if you're having twins or siblings, then when they can be so different from one another, then definitely the participants who are not at all similar. They are going to have so much differences within them. And these differences can be a form of extraneous variable. Like, for example, if we have those participants, like where I put the names like Aisha, Zara, Adna. So it's possible that they are, let's say they're all 15-year-olds, they're all best friends, but they can be very different from one another. Maybe Amna has a lot of interest in math, and that's why her math scores are very high. But Zara hates math, and she ends up in the 4 cups of coffee condition, and her take on math is very different. So individual differences are a very big issue when it comes to independent dishes design, and chances of the participant variables being very high can affect our results. Do you get this weakness?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And then we have the issue with the number of participants that we actually require. So if we have this independent measure design, we require a lot of participants. Then they are required for the repeated measure design that will come later. Because in a repeated measure design, we use the same participant in all of the condition. So in the independent one, we don't do that. In the independent one, we take different participants. So because of that, we need a lot of participants. Like for the study that we are currently doing, we needed 100 participants. But if you were doing a repeated design, maybe you could have taken just 50 participants. So this is a weakness as well. Now, these strengths and these weaknesses that you are studying for the independent measure design, they are going to be the strengths and weaknesses when you do any study which involves an independent measure design. Like it will be the same. Like you don't have to memorize the evaluation for that study. If you know the method, if you know the way they have designed the study, you can add these strengths and weaknesses. They are going to be the same. And if we look at the strengths, we see that there are no order effects. That is something that will come in repeat and measure design. The same task can be used in both of the conditions. There is lower probability of demand characteristics as participant take part in the condition only once. Uh, Now, just I want you to go to the book part and just give it a read. Make sure there's nothing that's left. So, yeah, unclear. If there's anything that's unclear, let me know. Just give the independent measure design a read, okay?
Okay. Okay, done.
Yeah. And the strengths and weaknesses as well. Like this, just this part, bit the first part.
Yes, I do.
Mm. Okay. Uh, Now let's go to, we have 10 minutes, so let's go to the repeated measures design. Mm, Okay. So a repeated measure design involves the same participant in both of the conditions. So we have the same participant in condition A and the same participant in the condition B. Okay. And in this way, we don't need to take different participants. We can have the same one and they can like occur, they can be a baseline for themselves. Like we don't have to take different participants. They all can like we don't even have a control group here because every participant becomes their own control group, right? So there is a participant that is in, let's say, like for example, if I do a study with you and I take a test of psychology from you before during the psychology class, and then I have a study with you after taking the psychology class. I have a test of you after taking the psychology class. So in this way, in the first condition, you were acting as your control group, and in the second way, in the second, you were, acting as a experimental group for yourself. Do you get this?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think instead of going into this, because I want to do it as a whole, as a topic, let's just do a question. Okay, I'm gonna send you a question. Do you have your phone with you at the moment?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So I'm gonna send you this question. I want you to think about it and tell me what do you think is the answer? Do you know what autism is?
Yes.
Hmm. What are your thoughts about the first one?
The independent variable is the autistic people with autism.
Uh, think again. Are there any people without autism here?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then there's another one as well.
And then how well these people will judge like the feelings.
Yes. Yeah. So no, that's the dependent variable, but the IV, there's another IV. See the last line?
Like the different conditions that the adults are like the different behaviors that adults are having.
Yes. Yes. Done. Mhm. And then the next one, how the dependent variable could be measured. If you have any idea, it's okay, just make a hunch.
I'm sorry, I don't really have an idea.
Okay. And then, yeah, and what about the C one? Advantage of using dolls. It's related to extraneous variables. Think in those terms.
Because like all the dolls will have the same like behaviors, or like actual people. Each person has like a different different dancing style, or
Yeah.
different ways of behaving.
Yes. So it will make sure that everything is done in the same way. So it will ensure uniformity, standardization. That's why good. And then a disadvantage, what do you think?
Because like it's dull, so the like people could react differently to it, because like it's not someone who you are like interacting with. It's not
Mm,
a real human,
yeah. So
so
it's
it could
not,
affect.
uh, so it's not like a real life interaction. We can't really use these results in a more real life in a general setting. It's done with dolls. So yeah, that's why. And then what about the last one?
It's independent because each
Yeah, because
each participant has a like a different IV condition.
yeah, very good. So each participant is only exposed to the condition once. All right. So Nadia, how was the class? Did you understand everything?
Yes, it's very understandable and very enjoyable.
All right. Thank you. Have a good
Thank
day.
you so much. Miss, will you be sending me these slides or no?
Yeah, I will make a classroom for you where you'll get the slides and the recordings. But it
Okay,
will
thank
take
you so much.
maybe a day or two, but you'll get them. Okay?
Okay, that's fine.
All right. Bye bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too.